Perfect. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 78th Dapr community call. I'm Nibide Uversky, and I'll be your host today. I'm a approver in the community. Today, we have three topics on deck. So we're going to be talking about 111 release update. Then we're going to do two demos, one for Cert Manager Controller, and then one with Dapr and KWOK. So I'll go ahead and start off with Yaron to give us a 111 release update.
All right, thank you. Let me just share my screen. You need to stop sharing. All right. Okay, let me know when you can see it.
Yep.
Yep, visible. All right, cool. So first of all, the 1.10 release, I think proved to be really interesting for many users because of the addition of workflows. And in 111, although we don't necessarily have specific items to, for example, add new SDKs, that remains a stretch goal. And we will be trying to add more support for Dapr Workflows SDKs. If you want to learn more about the Dapr 1.10 release, there is lots of really great content out there, YouTube, blog posts, some of it we've tweeted from the Dapr account. So just find whatever is out there and take a look at all that's new. So as always, we're going to cover some of what we intend to do for 1.11. And I think if you're an end user, the most interesting thing for you here is this announcement day here that I'm highlighting. And that's May 11th. So, you know, that might change. It changes from time to time, but this is what we're aiming for. So May 11th as the release date, sorry, May 10th for the release date, and then announcing it on the 11th if all goes well. If you're a contributor, you actually want to target this date, which is code freeze, and this is the last date for when we accept PRs into the Dapr project, unless it's to fix a bug or patch something that's security related in Dapr, wherever it is, CLI, runtime, components, contrib. And so these milestone dates are really what matters. The feature definition, feature freeze stages, these dates are more geared towards maintainers and approvers. So what do we have planned for this release? There's a bunch of things here. Not all of them will be completed. I can pretty much tell you that. We have a 6-week development window here, and there is lots of stuff. So if you want to learn about everything that we're covering in terms of priorities, just go over that. I'm certainly not going to go over all of that now due to time. But some of the few interesting things we're looking at are, first of all, to improve MTLS certificate rotation. This has been quite an ask from many users to basically improve how we do root certification, not for the workloads, but for the actual root certs that we use. We want to replace fast HTTP with CHI, so we're moving off of the fast HTTP. Why do you care as a user? Because it will allow you, for example, to use service invocation with HTTP2. This is a stretch goal because there's lots of work needed there. So if you're a community member watching this and you want to help, please reach out to maintainers. There's already one or two, I think, that started looking into this, but if you think you can do it, please talk to us. So yeah, we have that. We have external service to service invocation. Too bad we don't have the issues linked here, but if you search for that in Dapr repository, you'll be able to find the issue. This is about extending Dapr service to service calls, not only between Daprized services to other Daprized services, but between Daprized services to external endpoints that are not Daprized, allowing you to use the same security, reliability, and monitoring, observability capabilities that Dapr has for call-to-calls. Yes, we are targeting workflow improvements. Like I said, we don't have SDK work listed here. That will remain a stretch goal, but there are API improvements to raise new events to be able to pause and resume workflows. And then just fix some things that we just didn't get around to for the first release, like including not having duplicate entries. Another thing that's really important for workflows, but also for actors in general, is to be able to scale actor reminders. That will improve workflow performance. That will benefit generally everyone who's using actors today. We have a cryptography API, cryptography, not crypto in terms of coin. We're not issuing Dapr coins here, Just want to be very clear about that because people have asked. This is a pretty nice API that's going to be very useful for developers to perform cryptographic operations and really remove boilerplate code from their business logic into Dapr using trusted code and best practices being given to them. So this is also something that we're highly prioritizing for this release. There is a proposal for it. Hasn't been accepted, but it'll probably be accepted soon in the Dapr proposals repository. Another stretch goal we have is to allow dynamic subscriptions for PubSub. This is a community favorite. Lots of people have asked about this. When Dapr loads up, it reads the subscriptions, whether through a YAML or programmatic configuration. And users have said, well, when my app is running, sometimes I receive information that tells me I need to update my subscriptions. Well, how do I do that without needing a restart for my application in the Dapr sidecar? And this is basically how you'll go about doing that. Other than that, we have several fundamentals for 1.10, which is making the configuration APIs stable. Generally, we want to make as many APIs as stable as we can in the shortest amount of time possible. And we have currently the configuration APIs and alpha API. We have the query API as alpha, and we have the distributed lock API as alpha too. Ideally, we want to see as little alpha APIs out there as possible, but configuration is aimed to become stable, which will basically leave us with distributed lock. And as maintainers, we need to start discussions about what we're going to do with distributed lock in general. There's been some chatter over Discord about usage. So there are users using it. We'd probably want to get more feedback. So if you're watching this and you're using distributed lock, please reach out to maintainers. Something that's important to basically make this stable for us to understand is what kind of cloud components you would want as your distributed log store, for example, right? Today we want to support Redis. And so it really useful for us to understand if we need to invest more time in some components rather than others when we try and make that stable. We're also going to remove the Dapr dashboard from the Helm chart, and it's going to get released under a new dedicated chart that's also targeted for 1.11. And for folks who need to run very small binary size Dapr sidecars on, for example, edge devices, we are looking into being able to provide several, what we call them, flavors of the Dapr sidecar. So you'll be able to say, hey, I want a Dapr sidecar with no components at all. For example, just service to service invocation, or give me a Dapr sidecar with everything, which is Dapr today, or give me a Dapr sidecar with just stable components. And this will basically reduce the size of the binary. So if you're running in resource constrained environments, that might help you there. Yeah, and that's a majority of the major things that we're going to cover. Here are all the milestones. Of course, there's other things I didn't touch on, but the entire list is here. If you have any questions, you can comment on this issue. You can go through the repo milestones, see how you can contribute. We are trying to make better usage of the good first issue label to make it easier for new contributors to start contributing into the project. And yeah, if there's any other questions, please ask us either on Discord or GitHub. I'm done here. I'm going to stop sharing and back to you, Nimide.
Sounds good. Thanks, Yaron. So the next thing we're going to go ahead and do is I'm going to pass it over to Josh for a demo on Cert Manager Controller. Josh, do you want to go ahead and just share your, do you have the slide deck pulled up to share on your side, and then you could just share your
Sure
demo
thing.
after?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, let me know if you can see my screen. It's not too clear on Zoom.
Still
I see you
loading.
can. It's loading.
Yeah.
Stopped for some reason.
Yeah, I stopped it to retry. How about now?
Still loading.
So it looks like
The
you're...
suspense.
Yeah. How about I go ahead and just share my screen for the slides, and then...
Yeah, let's try one more time.
Wait, no, it's working.
Oh,
It's working. It's working.
It's working? Okay. It took a minute to think about if it's more people on the call, it takes longer. Anyway, yeah, hi everyone. I'm Josh. I'm a software engineer at Diagrid. I'm working on Dapr, doing a lot of Dapr open source stuff. Yeah, so some context from me. So I previously worked on the Cert Manager open source project as well. and do a bit of that from time to time, but mostly focused on Dapr at the moment. And recently, I put together this kind of small controller called Dapr Cert Manager that we just open sourced. And it might be interesting for users today. So Yaron just mentioned about how we're making improvements to how root CAs and MTLS in general is managed in Dapr in 1.11, or is it it's at least targeted for 1.11. But in the interim, before that work is completed and merged and released, there are kind of a number of problems, right? And that's why we're making changes upstream. So yeah, this controller is aimed to try and fix or alleviate some of those. So what am I talking about? So in Dapr, as it currently stands today, there are 3 certificate authorities. So when we say certificate authorities, this is your kind of X509 chain. Your certificate authorities, your kind of root of trust. These are your kind of root CAs. In your kind of default, at least Kubernetes installation, let's say for Dapr, you have 3 of these. So one of them is the Dapr trust bundle. That should say it's managed by Sentry, not Helm. But the Dapr trust bundle, this is one certificate authority that's used by the Sentry service. So this is the component that's responsible for minting MTLS certificates for your Dapr kind of sidecar components. You have then another one, which is for the webhook component that's not actually used today as far as I understand, but the kind of logic is there to create it. And then you have the third one that's responsible for the sidecar injector. And that's also created through Helm. So it's not particularly important to know kind of what these are used for in the context of this project, but it's important to understand that these kind of 3 certificate authorities exist. Now, the problem with that today is that, first of all, 2 of those 3 certificate authorities are created through Helm. And what that means is that, number one, there is no mechanism for them to be rotated correctly. So at the moment, I think they're kind of staying around for 10 years or what have you, but this isn't necessarily very configurable. And the second problem here is that users who prefer to use, a Helm template and use the kind of raw manifest to manage their installation over, doing a Helm install. You're obviously storing the root certificate authority as plain text, and that might be problematic for you depending on what your deployment strategy is. So this is kind of it is part of the problem. A third one is also that for some users and some organizations, it's quite interesting for them to have perhaps option one is that they have all of their certificates rooted in some kind of organizational certificate authority. That might be quite important to them. But number 2, at least different teams inside their org, or just for the the team managing Dapr itself, they want some visibility over the certificates that are being used inside their infrastructure. That's quite important for them. And today, that's just not really the case, especially kind of with this Helm installation strategy. So to kind of to kind of change it a bit, I'm going to now talk about Cert Manager. So when in the kind of Kubernetes space, if you're dealing with certificates, you probably are going to want to use Cert Manager. Kind of, at this point, it's become the de facto kind of X509 certificate kind of operator for Kubernetes. What that means in practice is that, like other operators in Kubernetes, it will provide you with resources. So to the pods, you can get access to things like certificates and issuers. And you can request your certificates from some kind of certificate authority, whether that be self-signed inside your cluster that you create yourself, or it might be Vault, or Verify, or Let's Encrypt is a common use case for people who are familiar with that to get publicly trusted certificates. And so the idea here is that Cert Manager helps to fix a lot of the problems we were just talking about, right? If we could use Cert Manager, we can get a visibility over these things because we have that kind of Kubernetes resource to represent these certificates. We can use different types of issuers. So we could root our certificate authority in something like Vault or something, which is obviously interesting for some people. And also that they're managed through Cert Manager. So you get things like rotation for free. So while the work we're doing targeted for 111 and hopefully first class support for Cert Manager would also come in 111, but that's definitely a stretch goal. In the meantime, before that work, we want some way of linking together Dapr and Cert Manager, which is where this new kind of Dapr Cert Manager controllers come in. As I was describing before about the certificate and issuer resources, so in the demo that I'll show shortly, if you're not familiar with Cert Manager before, and I know this is YAML, so we won't look at it for too long, but yeah, as you can imagine, it's Kubernetes, so you represent your different objects as these YAML resources, and they represent kind of the API of creating an issuer and creating a certificate, and these end up getting created as resources in the cluster, but we'll show those in a second. As I showed on the previous slide, this is what a certificate authority would look like. So you can imagine this, perhaps being in Vault or something like that, as I just said. In this case, we're going to use a self-signed certificate. So that's just what I'm here, what I'm doing here. For the so where the Dapr Cert Manager controller comes in, let's say that we've created a certificate authority for the 3 certificate authorities that I mentioned earlier, and I've created, intermediates from those that I can supply to those components. Those things are represented as these cert managers. Sorry, I keep flipping back and forward. These get represented in these certificate objects, and we want to have a way of Dapr to ingest the result of these certificate resources. So that's where the operator comes in, and it's quite simple. The main pieces of configuration which are interesting is number one, the Dapr namespace that Dapr is installed into in Kubernetes, and then we have those 3 certificate authorities. So these are referencing Cert Manager certificate resources, and it's going to be syncing the result of those certificates into a secret which each Dapr component understands and is going to ingest. And this controller is obviously a Kubernetes controller, so it's watching for these things. It will respond to events, which means that everything is eventually consistent and keeps up to date. So we get our kind of renewal functionality as well. So to show a quick demo of this working, just wanted to show that I've got a hopefully you can see this okay and it's not too laggy or anything like that. We've got the controller running here. We've got Dapr installed, not particularly running, but that's not important. We've got Cert Manager running. And all I want to show here is that I have, I want to get certificates in the Dapr system. I have these 3 root CAs, and you can think of these. These could be these. I'm just using a kind of self-signed certificate here, so these might not exist for your particular installation. These are serving. What am I doing? These are serving these issuers here, but these could be Vault or whatever else, whatever's kind of particularly useful for your use case. And then I have these 3 certificate objects here, which are requesting from that issuer. So if I describe this certificate, for example, you can see that it's referencing that issue I was just showing. And this particular certificate is for the injector one. You see, so yeah, it's got all the kind of injector needed DNS names. And I've configured the operator to be watching those 3 certificates. I'll just, what am I doing? Describe. one. Yeah, similar as I just showed in the slide. I'm configuring the Dapr controller to watch those certificates. So what's happening in the background is that operator is watching those certificates and populating the relevant secrets in the Dapr system namespace. So in our case, that is for Dapr, it's going to be that one, that one, that one, and I believe another one. I believe it's those two actually as well. And we can see this in practice. There's not a huge amount to kind of show with this because it kind of just works and kind of hums in the background. But as a kind of demonstration of this working in practice, is I'm just watching kind of a kind of watch dash 0.2 second watch on one of the secrets, which is for the Dapr trust bundle. You can see if I do a CMCTR renew, which is going to renew the Cert manager certificate object, you can see that immediately that's going to get picked up and updated on the secret. Another kind of nicety of this controller is that it will attempt to kind of respect the kind of CA bundles of the resulting secrets. So you can imagine in the context of things like CA rotation, which can be quite hairy, and that's also a goal for Dapr to try and improve upstream, is that part of doing a CA rotation is you need a period of time where you need to trust more than one route at once, and the controller tries to help with that. So it will only ever append to root certificates. So we can see that in action if we do something like I believe it is that one, and then if we renew the certificate we just did. One, you can see that the root CA here just got much larger, and that's just because the controller is appended to it. So we kept the old root lying around just, yeah, to try and keep things as safe as possible. These are obviously then being watched by Dapr, so I think the most interesting thing is the sentry logs. So you can see here that the sentry is picking up those changes from the secret and updating accordingly. I think that's mostly it for the demo. There's not too much else to show. It's got more functionality to pin the root CA, which might be interesting for some people. Another thing which might be interesting for people is to make use of this Cert manager annotation you can put on the validating webhooks. I think for Dapr's case, it's using a mutating webhook. So putting that annotation on and pointing it to the relevant secret would be important to update the CA bundle and mutating webhook. That's a bit of kind of an implementation detail. And that's all. The project you can find is here. Hopefully this project will only be useful for a very short amount of time. Because yeah, like I say, hopefully once we can do the work kind of in upstream to alleviate a lot of these problems and hopefully eventually get first class support in Dapr and have a kind of user experience flow where we say, install Dapr and use this Cert manager issuer, let's say, and it's using that issuer for all of the certificates in Dapr. But until that time, this is a kind of a decent kind of interim solution.
Awesome. It
Cool.
looks like we do have a question in chat, actually.
Go ahead. I can open that actually. Is there any downtime on CA rotation? So in terms of, so the controller does as much as it can in terms of allowing CA rotation, as in, like I was talking about before with the kind of appending the root certificates. That's the kind of first thing you need when doing a rotation. So at least does that. In terms of how does Dapr handle root CA rotation, I think it would need some testing. So I can confidently answer that. I know at least the controller tries to do the right thing, let's say. Yeah. Don't try that at home, maybe. Or well, try it at home, but don't try it at work, maybe. Yeah.
Okay, well, I think that's the only question we have in chat. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks. Oh yes, I need to give you back my screen, don't I? There we are.
Yes. Perfect. Okay. So next on our agenda, we're going to go ahead and move on to a demo from Filinto. Would you like to also share your screen, or would you like me to share? Oh, you're sharing already. Perfect.
We can see it. You might want to enter slideshow.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, Filinto here. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Could you
I'm
actually do us a
also.
favor and click the slideshow button in the top right corner
Oh, sure.
so everything's just bigger?
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. Also, I'm Filinto, engineer also at Digrid. Today, well, I'm going to kind of present a utility that came from Kubernetes recently, and that kind of actually helped me to do on some of the tests for a PR I'm working on for Dapr, and maybe can help other contributors also in Dapr. And that utility is called, I don't know how you pronounce it, I say KWOK, by KWOK, I don't know, whatever, is Kubernetes without kubelet. And it's mainly to simulate having a lot of pods, and also you can change the stage of the pods without actually running the containers. As I mentioned, I was, and I have a PR that is to reduce the memory on the operator. And at some moment, I was trying to see what were the benefits of the changes that I was making. And the benefits were looking very little because I could not get more than 200 pods in my laptop. So this came out, I mean, it came out this year, but I just knew about it last week when they announced it in the blog in Kubernetes. And again, it's just kind of simulating the pods and simulating the nodes, like the controller of the nodes. And that way you can create as many pods as your memory in your laptop can handle. Okay. So again, the use case mainly checking scheduler or checking your controllers, checking your webhook, mutating, validating webhooks, affinity toleration, things like that related to Kubernetes. And in our case, for Dapr, I mean, checking the operator. Okay. Let me show you quickly. Just the installation is fairly simple. I mean, I'm just following here what is on the KWOK site. Just, I mean, from your cluster, you can just add the installation of the KWOK, and then you can also you start creating nodes. In my case, I have 30 nodes. Each of these nodes can handle 300 pods. And you can put more if you want. Usually, you cannot do more than 100, 110. That's the default. And let me see. And when you create the nodes, you have to add the taints, and then you need the toleration on your pods, and also a node selector. Okay, let me go back to the presentation. So some findings that while running the test on the operator, is like just one of them was, right now on the operator, the role doesn't have the watch permission. And what you can see here on the right is how, because when we have the watchdog in the operator, it does a poll you have an interval. In this case, it was 30 seconds. And you can see how a spike, I mean, not very steady, how everything was working without the watch. But if you have the watch, you see it's a smoother curve on your resources. So just adding watch to the role actually improve the operator. So that was one of the findings after being able to test at scale. Some other findings, well, I got to know more about the caches, the controller runtime, and things that you can prune. Well, one of them is just create your own cache with the selector, and that was simple. But also, like, you can do transformation to reduce what is cache So you can remove certain parts of the object that are stored, as long as you know that you're not going to be using it. And also something I added was coalescing the objects. So in this case, we're like objects that we are not going to be using at all, that I know we will not be using. So I'm just using a single object for all of them. We cannot use selectors for certain things, because like in the pod, we need to find out the containers, and in the deployment, we need to find out about the template spec. So that's why I cannot just use selector. That will be more simpler. What else? Well, and then you can see, I mean, after checking with the scale, I could see actually the benefit of using all these different cache tuning for the memory consumption on the operator, where for here, this is 9,000, I think, pods. And you can see it can get to 1 gig today, where with the operator is 60 meg or something. And the same for and this is for non-Dapperized applications. So all these pods don't have Dapr, but we still store them in the cache. So that's the issue right now at scale on the operator, and maybe in other operator that we use in Dapr. And this is with Dapperized applications. Again, very similar, but we have more work here. Yeah, here also, I'm showing, again, this is the current operator right now. And at this point, I just switched the wash in the role, and you can see just this change, how it improved the behavior of the operator. And here I just switch it to the new operator, the PR. So in conclusion, I mean, KWOK really helped with the scaling test. It crashes sometimes. I mean, it's version 0.1, so, but it really helped me a lot in doing this test for this PR. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Let me see.
Awesome. Yeah, it doesn't look like we have any questions, but we can just open it up since this is the last presentation. Any questions on any of the demos we shared today?
No, I just want to say that both are really great additions. The Cert Manager controller certainly alleviates existing pain points that have haunted Dapr users for a very long time in regards to CA cert rotations. As Josh said, we're going to fix it upstream, but until then, this is a pretty good alternative. And then the KWOK stuff, this can be very useful to test the Dapr control plane at scale without needing to spin up huge clusters, right? So you know, testing how the control plane behaves with many pods that are connected to it. So this might be something we want to put in our long hauler end-to-end tests, and we'll want to look at that for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely. Great. Well, thank you for such a great demo. Let's see. So the last thing on our agenda today is just open discussion. So if there's no questions on any of the demos, are there any other topics we want to talk about or discuss, or any questions from the community? Okay. Well, it sounds like we've got nothing, so we can go ahead and end this call for today. Thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you.
Thanks all. Bye.
Cheers, everyone. Bye-bye.